Right.
Watch, they're gonna go back on Facebook and be like, what was she talking about? What's that spice thing that she was crazy
Is
about?
that mine?
All in one.
Hey guys, għaddej xej arbiter DeCrane nxe. Kif nċin,
I
bax
lied,
nċin
though, the
għagħna
best
nċle.
part is the actual
Kutteja
photos.
d-dinja nċle. Għaxċin idda xeċej.
Not fully melted.
Għagħi din inda xnna. Kutteja, dinja nċle. Just getting over watching Carolina cooking her chili rellenos, or healthy form of chili rellenos. They're still over there cooking. If you haven't tuned
Try
in.
this one? Is it ready or do I need to add more? Because you added more
Yeah, it's
potatoes.
another live segment
I didn't even try it.
that we do here at the Indian Health. So yeah, tune in for that. It's usually right before my little talk, 3 o'clock Tuesdays with Carolina Cooking Matters. And I was just watching some of the ingredients that she was making. Remind me of the food back home. You probably saw the thumbnail. Oh, my phone just going off. I have to turn it off real quick. I was going to talk about food today, traditional foods. I know I had a question, or actually, my son had wanted me to talk more about this. So, my son Thomas requested I talk a little bit more about food. If you know me, I love to talk about food. Food's my favorite subject. uh, but traditionally, I think last week we talked about respecting animals, and I think we touched a little bit about the importance of food, food sovereignty, and food. What makes food so important to Native people? There's a lot of it's a way of life. It food in itself. Depending on where it's um, harvested or picked. As Native people, we've always had a very um, closeness to it. We had a lot of respect for our food. I think last week I was talking about we've lost that a little bit of respect for our food. I mean, we don't even know where it comes from most of the time. Someone in a plantain or a plantation is picking our food, and it goes through so many different hands, and finally there's pesticides, there's insecticides, there's all kind of um, things that are put into our food nowadays that we don't even know where they even come from. What time of year, or just a lot of. I think the point is a lot of the nutrients is lost in some of our foods, and so a lot of times we get a lot of our fruits nowadays are mostly sugar, and that's pretty bad for us as Indian people. As Indian people, we've been struggling for a while now. Ever since we our rights are the McRib. Yep, I'm gonna talk about the McRib. I see Raymond Riviera is on right now. Hey, Raymond. Yeah, I think from my thumbnail, you probably saw that I made Indian tacos last week. I kind of made a different version. Myself. I come from my mom and my grandparents. They all were cooks, were chefs. My mom had an Indian taco stand for a while. She actually helped paid for my brother's tuition when he went to college. She helped paid for it in that way, and so just that's my a bit of my expertise. You could say I'm not a professional biologist or botanist. I can't even say it. And the study of plants and our food. Um, that's just a little disclaimer. From my point of view. I'm not a professional. I don't know how to do a lot of things. Like most of us here, that live in urban areas, we don't know how to do a lot of things. I used to know. I used to could. My grandparents taught me a lot. Back because we lived off our land, and they taught us where to plant. There were certain places that you could plant, and other places you couldn't. Just because we lived up in the high desert. I'm from originally I grew up in New Mexico, the high desert area, and where we planted was a lot of times was down in the ravines or the ditches. That's where all the nutrients of the earth of the ground gathers, and they kind of form up kind of a tunnel. And in the open areas, that's where we would plant, and that was the best place to do your harvest as Indian people, and just thinking about all the environment, the farms and the dams, and I think about all these things when I think about food. Where does it come from? Like I said, we lost that respect of our food. Where it comes from, who's touched it last. Um, in a traditional way of thinking, we used to harvest our food. We go out and pray. We around here in California, they did a lot of burning of the land. And that burning of the land would replenish the land. And nowadays here in California, we're having trouble with all these fires, these major fires, because they stopped us from burning the land, which really affected this area. The traditional California people all over. California is huge, and there's so many different tribes here in from San Diego all the way up to the north, um, to Mount Shasta, Oregon kind of border. And so there's so many different tribes, so many different food recipes, for so many different ways that we cultivated food, we harvested food, we planted food, we took care of the earth. It's different from where I come from on Navajo reservation. Like I said, we kind of took advantages of the runoff areas of the ditches of the reservoirs, and grew our plants there because that was the best place to. That was where the most nutritious or enriched soil was at, and so we took advantage that way. Like I said, here in California, in Kumeyaay territory, they did burning. They burned the land, and with that, they through burning is very a complex way of doing it. Scientific, let's say. It's a way that we take down material and reform it, make it into smaller materials, make it into nutritious material, and that's how they would take care of this land. They say, I hear a lot of elders that talk about the old times when California used to be like a very well, a beautiful place. It was paradise. It was very well taken care of. This land was beautiful. There wasn't no overgrown anything. It was very cultivated. It was taken care of by the native people that live in this area. And we've gone away from that, and now that buildup, that denial of burning, and it's coming back. Mother Earth is saying that is angry with us a little bit, and saying that we're not playing our part, and so these fires are the result of it. These fires are out of control. There's so much brush, so much fuel, and that it burns and it catches. The way the Indians used to burn the bottom layer, the grass, and that's what they burned. They didn't burn the trees, because as the trees, once the tree catches on fire, it can get out of control. You can't even get close to it. But if you're doing a small brush fire, that's different. You can take care of the soil that way. So these techniques of all these different tribes around this area. We have tribes that live to the close coastal area, to the mountains, to the high deserts or to the low deserts. We've got so many different tribes and a diversity of native people and ways and foods, and that's my favorite subject, is just food. Talking about food diversity and food. Let's say here in Kumeyaay territory, there was over 100, and I saw this study. They did like over 100 different assortment of food or diet that they had here in the Kumeyaay territory, from using the sea, to using plants, to using acorn. Right now it's acorn season. They would the whole process of just harvesting acorn. There's a prayer, there's a song, there's all these things that have been lost, or not lost, just not used as frequently as they can be, as they should be. So it's up to you to figure out where you can play your part in knowing where your food comes from. I try to we do our best to try to utilize the farmers markets and get our produce from there, or some of our food from there, because it's giving back to the small business, and it's also there's only maybe one or two people that have touched your food, versus buying stuff from the grocery store. that's just our dilemma living in the big city. A lot of times we forget that, and we should always give thanks. I think the biggest part of my talk last week was to give thanks to the animals, the plants, that have sacrificed, to keep us nourished, our nourishment. There's things that, protocols that we don't do as much as we used to, but we need to redo them, rethink about them to make us think, to make us, conscious of our body, what we're putting into our body, too many chemicals and stuff that we're putting in the body, which results in, diabetes. Right now I'm wearing a shirt, well, oh, I thought I was wearing a diabetes shirt. This is the Walk Against Meth Showband Festival, up in, right now, a lot of times, I don't know, if you guys know who I am, what I like to do, I usually like to travel to different powwows, and I think that's where my expertise is kind of going to come in about food. Food. For me, I love the buffets. I used to love the buffets when we had buffets. I'm kind of sad. Can't even go to my favorite place, the Valley View Casino. Try not. Nobody's sponsored me yet. But anyway, just thinking about their buffet. I guess they opened for a hot second and they closed again. As everybody knows right now, we were back on shutdown, on lockdown, but it's actually staying safe at home. We're back. We're still taking care of ourselves, staying safe at home. Doing things, and just I've been really thinking about I think for a lot of us we've been really thinking about um, where our food comes from, because I don't know. Well, I have, mostly because, I've been diagnosed as a diabetic. It's been over a year or 2 years now. And I've changed my ways. I changed my eating habits, my food habits. I don't eat too much breads or carbs. I still eat carbs, try not to eat the sugary carbs. I'm more conscious of my diet. Last night we had spaghetti, and, my wife, got some of that squash, and she made a squash to make my spaghetti, which is spaghetti squash. And I still had the same ingredients on it. I still had the beef. Sometimes I do better. I'll get turkey, but then this time I tried to balance it a little bit. um, but at the same time, got to take care of myself. Figure out. And I think that's the key to the diabetes, to all the things that has been lost traditionally. We used to be very healthy people when we were on our own traditional diets. I think around here, I was watching this documentary about people that were harvesting the acorns, and how they would just use, they harvest them. There was a whole process that they did, and they would use this. It was like a poor. They would end up making a real small little bundles, and they would put them in their pouches, and they could run for a long time. And they would just snack on that little acorn power protein little pack that we had. And they would run clear across half of California. Just on that little bit of nutrients that comes from the acorn. But there's a whole process that's done with that. And some people say it's lost, but it's not really lost. It's just you got to go out there and find those people that still know the ways to prepare different foods, traditional foods. We just saw Carolina prepare like chili rellenos, but in the form that it was more nutritious and healthy for you. In that way. And that the way she prepared it, she didn't fry anything this time. She was baking it, and she didn't put too much cheese on it. And yeah, and so a lot of the foods that we eat, nowadays we think about where they come from. We're trying to take care of small businesses. We're trying to trying to eat at home. Usually I have a menu. We have a whole menu thing, a weekly menu that we try to prepare our menu, and it's how we prepare our weekly meals. Usually I take care of breakfast. I'll just make eggs and bacon. That's not too nutritious, but I try to eat things in portions. Rather than eating so much and so much and consuming so much, which is really bad for you. I think about my daughter, who's also, she was a full vegan and a full that's, not true vegan. What do they call, not a vegan, where she, didn't eat any animals. I can't think of the name right now. But anyway, since, she did that, it really made us as parents think, we had to prepare different foods. For a while there, we were preparing like three different foods. In my household, my wife, can't eat certain things, and I can't eat certain things. And my daughter likes, vegetables, and she's a vegetarian, nowadays. And so, we pretty much prepare three different types of food for each of us to eat, to consume. My wife can't have little seeds and tomatoes, so her salsa that she made the other night, she had to make her own salsa without seeds. And me and the kids, had seeds and stuff like that. And so, just thinking about, the diversity of our plants, and where they come from, and the ecosystems, they all have been disrupted. And what can we do about it? What can we can what can we how can we help that? We can try to grow plants. This is not the first time, this topic has been brought up. Being eco conscientious, or eco, and create environments or systems, that you can do. I don't know if you ever heard the term of a food desert, or a desert food desert. Anyway, it doesn't make sense to me, in the desert, because there's a lot of different foods in the desert that we can use, that as Indian people, that we've always used. And yet people are talking about food deserts, and yet paying for food at flea markets, at grocery stores, and all these places that we pay for food, when we can actually, food is free. We can actually grow it. We can make it ourselves. You just gotta have the know-how, the means to, place to grow them. But here in, if you live in the urban areas, it's a little harder, because a lot of us live in apartments. In we don't have our own backyard. We don't have our own places to grow our own food. So it's a lot harder for us. So how we've been doing it is, like I said, we've been taking advantage of the farmers markets. And we know how we have friends. I have my friend Chris. She always has oranges that we can get from her, pomegranates, and things like that, and other things that grow around her property. But for me, we live in you know in a building. I got no backyard. I got no front yard. We actually, at the Indian Health, we and with Title 6, Title 7, we actually started a community garden. But it's kind of hard for us, to live in the urban areas and be able to be conscientious, of our foods. But at the same time, how do we do this? How do we, get away from the bad things? How do we get away from all the chemicals? And there's a lot of thought, a lot of process, a lot of things that we need to do. Food, like I said, food is free. We just, gotta grow it and maintain it and carry it, and a lot of that's lost. And a lot of people shouldn't be starving, because like I said, food's free, but for some reason we go to the store and pay for it, because we have that convenience, we have that um, um, that dependence, which we really need to work on and get away from. There's been a lot of talk, and I'm reopening that talk, so we can hopefully continue to figure out a way to get us, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, versus canned foods, getting away from flour. Like I said, if you heard me earlier, I was talking about my family. We sold Indian tacos, to make a living. We sold that. I know a lot of people, or well, it actually is true that a lot of those were government items that were given to us, and we just kind of made the best out of nothing. It was flour, sugar, and sugar, salt, and lard, and that's how we prepared it. And it wasn't very healthy, but it's the food that we have had, how we survived, and we keep on surviving. It's fry bread in itself has become kind of not a staple. It's more of a comfort food, but at the same time, how can we prepare it better for us? Like for me, I changed the oil from lard to olive oil, but it's is a little better, but at the same time, you're still eating that flour, which is bad for diabetics. So I only have for myself, I only can have fried bread every once a year. I try to keep away from that bread in itself. Even the wheat, I can't have too much wheat. It's the wheat that they make these days is really, it's not the wheat that we as Indian people we used to have. Even like the chia seeds. I was just looking at the chia seeds that we put on our some of our foods. Is not the chia seeds that we used to have around this area. This where we used to cultivate a lot of our plants are not our original plants, our traditional plants. I think I touched on it a little bit last week. A lot of our plants are overgrown. Um, like I said, the fruits are overgrown, mostly full of sugar, lot less nutritious for you. Nutrients is a lot of loss, and and you can tell the difference. If you ever get a chance, try a food, like even take a strawberry, and try to pick a fresh strawberry from the wild. I've done that with raspberries. You take a raspberry that you went out and picked. We used to go up to this mountain, and pick these raspberries and bring them back. I remember one time we tried some from the store versus that, and there was like no flavor in the one from the store, but the one that we picked from the mountain was so I don't know, just like an explosion in my mouth. It was so juicy, delicious, and so much nutrients in that's been lost. And so thinking about when you buy food, try to buy some of the traditional foods. I think I talked about the russet potatoes are the big potatoes from Idaho. Those are not very nutritious for us. The original potatoes that we used to have around here were a lot smaller. The red apple, the red ones, the gold ones, the smaller ones are the more nutritious ones. And just thinking about that, and different foods. Here in the desert area, we also eat some of the cactus, which is what that they're saying nowadays. A lot of these scientists and these food nutritionist people are saying, "Oh, look at all these superfoods," and this acorn is superfood, and as indigenous people or Indian people, we already knew that. We already knew this was our traditional food. So we need to get back to that. It just takes a little bit of nudging, a little bit of pushing, a little bit of a discipline in yourself to try to do that, and at times, and it can be expensive if you want to go a route of buying stuff. But if you can, if you have a friend or something that maybe you can get in with them and use their land and garden with them, and they get the benefit of getting food for themselves, and we get benefit of for foods for ourselves by us being able to take care of their area, their land. Um, there's things that we can do as urban people, as the people that live in the city nowadays. Indians that live in the city. That's just a thought. But anyway, we're talking about this subject about food. Like I said, I'm no professor or doctor. I don't. My education is not in food. It's more in traditional ways of thinking. My specialty is more into just getting the things going, so we can start thinking that little nudge, that little push, so we can be better for ourselves and the people that for our kids. What you feed your kids is how smart they're going to be. All what you put in your body is it's going to help them in school. It's going to help them think better, have a clear mind. The medicines that we use, sage around here, the coastal sage is used a lot. And they can be used as a tea. If you have a cold. Food is medicine. You can use it as a medicine also. Where you can burn sage to cleanse the area, the microbes, the bad stuff, and also you can use it to it's good for coughs or colds also. And so it's up to us as Indian people to get our act together, get ourselves together, figure out how we can take care of our food for the benefit of ourselves, so we can continue on our ways of life, in preparing food and making food. Just making food here at in the kitchen. You can always bring your kids with you and talk a little bit to them about preparing the food. Just cutting potatoes. You know, now that we're all back safe at home, we have an opportunity to teach our kids how to cook food, and we can watch cooking shows and try to cook food ourselves, make it more a lot of fun, and so that we can all be healthy in that way. I just wanted to touch a little bit about that, the importance of our food. Pray, give thanks to our food again, where it comes from, what they do. There's a lot of things that you can do to educate yourself on food sovereignty and food as a whole. I think about land that I have back home. That we that I get a little bit of money for. That we these farmers they use our land to farm, and I get a little bit of money of that. But I don't know what they're doing to the land. Are they destroying the land? Like as Indian people, we had ways to take care of the lands that wasn't so destructive. Nowadays when they plow a land, they pretty much kill the land, and it becomes a desert if they start plowing. But for Indian people, we used to burn. It was just a little cycle, and that would put nutrition back into the land to grow the new stuff to make the harvest even better. And I don't know, a lot of that's lost. And just think about that. I think about food. I am a foodie. I enjoy a good buffet, and there was a time we were able to check out the buffets. I want to kind of transition to talking about maybe reminisce a little bit about my food journey. As a dancer, a powwow person. When I go to powwows or to gatherings, I always have a problem. Sometimes there's not enough good food. We have a lot of fried food. We have a lot of fry bread. Usually when I go to these gatherings, I don't eat that kind of stuff anymore. I eat more healthy. Then it's really hard to find a healthy food stand when you go to some of our gatherings and some of our festivals. And it's been a struggle since I've been diagnosed as diabetic. A lot of the food stands that we go to are very unhealthy. They're like the carnival ones we see at the carnival park or something like that, very unhealthy. And so but there's there's actually quite a few food stands that have been becoming a lot more healthier. I think of my friend who's made a food stand. She actually started doing like really healthy foods at the same time. She was still selling ice cream and stuff like that. She was selling some healthy foods at the same time. So there was a bit of an option, a bit of say, oh, okay, I can go get this acai bowl versus getting this unhealthy fry bread. But I do, I miss a lot of different foods. When I was on the powwow trail, I would sample many different foods from different tribes. I would get to go like up to when I went to Washington every now and then. I was able to get there. You get there earlier before the powwow starts. They have a little community get together. I remember going to this place and being invited. Excuse me, being invited to their feed beforehand, and it was awesome. They had a big old seafood. It was a seafood. They pretty much gave you a bucket with all kind of clams and seafood inside of it, and they had not dry meat, but dry salmon, dry fish, and it was just a huge, I don't know, a boil, you could say. I don't know what you call that kind of eating, but it was a lot of shellfish, and it was so good. It was so delicious, it was so different, unique from eating unhealthy stuff at the powwow. But I was able to do that. I was lucky enough to do that. I think about those times I got to partake in some of the traditional foods that they would have before the big festivals. Even back home in Crow Country, as we have our own food. You get to go to different camps. About where I'm from in the Crow Countries, we feed each other. We host each other. Especially if you live out of state, you go back home, you get to see all your relatives. You're able to eat at different camps every day for lunch, breakfast, and dinner. I always took advantage of talking and mixing and talking to my relatives, and enjoying their food that they made. What it was, tripe. Tripe is like a stomach from the deer. They would have like different stews like that. They would have bison. They would have choke cherries. They would have dry meat. They would have these mud balls. It was choke cherries and like a beef jerky, and they would mix it. I think I think Raymond was talking about beef jerky, but we would use that choke cherry and and jerky, and they would mix it, and they would use other berries too, and would mix it with the beef, and it was like just like a little ball of beef. It's so good, it's so delicious, it's so nutritious. It's good for you. That type of meat, the wild game like deer or buffalo is different than eating like a burger from Burger King or eating something from McDonald's or something like that, or that beef or that meat, that's unhealthy, because those cows just kind of stand in one place the whole time. As Indian people, where I come from, the Crow people, we hunted the buffalo, and the buffalo were part of the system, ecosystem. We talk about around here. We talk about the burning of the areas of the land. For us, as in the Great Plains area, it was those animals that actually took care of the land. They would chew down the grasses so far, and then they would have it was a total cycle of life, you could say. The coyotes or the wolves would chase them, so they would eat certain areas and they would move on, because the wolves or the coyotes would chase them, and they would eat in certain areas. And so at the same time they were pruning or trimming the grasses, and so that created an ecosystem, a healthy ecosystem that all the animals, and including us as human beings, we benefited from, and we learned. And so as Indian people, a lot of that, our buffalo was taken away from us, and so a lot of if you go in the Great Plains area nowadays, you'll see just fields and fences, and think about farms, and when it used to be all open and used to be animals that helped the ecosystem, helped the lands, and all the buffaloes have been lost. It almost killed us as Crow people, as Indian people, but we survived. We did what we could. One of those things was the fry bread. Living on commodities. I grew up I have a commod bod, because I grew up on that stuff. We were poor, and I didn't know we were poor at the time. I just knew, it was never a thought in my mind that we were poor, but we got commodities, and then we ate whatever my mom made, whether it was just macaroni or something out of a can or a box. I don't know if anybody can relate with me, eating eggs that came from a dry box. I grew up kind of like that, because I used to add water to some eggs and they came real. It just kind of, I don't know, it makes me sad. I think all that bad eating and those habits actually build up, and that made diabetes in a lot of us, and it made us unhealthy, and it's just hard trying to get away from all that. We see all that stuff even on TV, and I don't know, we just get so much input and things that come to mind about food. I don't know, but just thinking about going back to my story about our hospitality, and as Indian people, we're a very hospitable people, and being able to enjoy food in different areas, in different tribes, was always a blessing for me. I miss last year. I don't know how many different places I was able to go eat. As some of you know that I'm a military person. I was able to travel overseas, and that was my thing. That's something I like to do. I would like to go out and go eat somewhere and try something new. And I know in Navajo country we have a lot of taboos about eating different animals, and it's for good. It's for a good reason, because sometimes those animals got us sick, and it got the whole tribe sick. What's happening now in COVID? Someone ate a bat, and and that the way they ate it or the way they prepared it wasn't probably traditionally how they did it before. Somehow they just ate it, and that made it a disease, that spread. We talk about all the animals. Animals have their own diseases, and usually they're contained in the animals. But this moved on to the human And humans are animals too, but we have our own diseases that other animals. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. It's too scientific for me. That's not my specialty. My specialty is just a little bit of storytelling and telling of a time. And I know we'll get back to it. We'll be able to get back to our celebrations, to our get-togethers, to our powwows, to our gatherings, and be able to have that good food. But I think before I kind of went off sidetrack there, I travel all over the world, eating different foods. I really enjoyed eating sushi, like fresh. If you haven't had fresh sushi from Japan, prepared like pretty much the guy went down to the market, picked up the fresh food that was just caught, brought it to the store, cut it up, and served it right to you. That's how fresh it was, when I ate that. And it's completely different from eating sushi from like 7-Eleven or something like that. And so, that experience that you get and that taste, that in your mouth, I can just bring it back home, back to New Mexico. In New Mexico, we have a different type of food. We use a lot of chili, hatch chili. We use like some red chili and green chili. We have this thing called Christmas. Just think about the Christmas tree behind me. When we have our Mexican dishes, they're our traditional food. They're mixed with red chili and green chili and red chili, and they call it Christmas. If you ever go back to New Mexico and eat some food from there, it's very different than eating food from here in Southern California. We have more of a Baja Chipotle around here. The Mexican food is a lot different, and Mexican food is actually Indian food, native food. If you didn't know that, it was a mixing of Spanish and the native people to make food, and they made a lot of Mexican food. Nowadays, that's what we call it, Mexican, but it's really traditional type of foods that we eat. A lot of Mexican people or indigenous people, prepare indigenous meals and foods, and we don't even know that they're indigenous to this area. Just like strawberries come from this area, or come from this country. Tomatoes come from this country. They don't have those in England. They don't have even though you think about going to Spain or Italy or places where you think pizza came from or tomatoes or spaghetti. You think that's Italian, but they didn't have tomatoes over there. They didn't. They prepared different things, and it was tomatoes that came from the states, the America, to our country that went over there overseas. So our food is all over. Our raspberries, our berries, our different berries are different and unique to our areas where we come from. And enjoying food across all over the country. I remember going to Seoul and eating Korea, Seoul, and eating Korean food, and it was very different than eating Chinese food or Japanese food or it's just the way they prepare it. It's very unique, and if you ever go to some of the markets, that was the best place to get food. I think I remember going to Japan and going to this fish market, and they had, oh my God, just like bins and bins of just different sea creatures and different foods, and they would prepare it there, and you could eat it there, and it's so good. Yeah, I really enjoy food. Just thinking about, in the military, when I used to be stationed up in San Francisco, and there was a lot of fresh food or fresh seafood, down at the Fisherman's Wharf. I remember going down there and eating a lot of that seafood, and it was way different. Like I said, eating it fresh, just been caught, just been prepared, and straight to your mouth, and it's a very unique situation to if you ever get a chance to get to enjoy. I think tonight I don't think we have anything on our menu. I think I want to have some Thai food. I enjoy different Thai foods. I think my latest addiction right now is eating Thai cashew chicken Thai, with the level of hotness being at 5, which is pretty hot. I start sweating. I really enjoy hot food, chili food, which come to find out, scientists are just not figuring out that hot food or that chili can actually, help your metabolism. It reboots your metabolism. It gives it a little bit of boost, and that can help you with your diabetes. But like anything, like with anything, even water, have a glass of water before you even eat your food. It will help you digest and do a lot of good things, good benefits. Right now, I'm drinking looks like coffee, but it's actually water with a little bit of lemon and a little bit of salt. And it's warm, it's hot, it's good, it's nutritious. It helps me with my body. Water is the first medicine that we have as Indian people, and a lot of times, in my traditional way of thinking, we pray. In Native American church ceremonies, we pray with that water. We pray and bless it, and we pass it around. I still do that with my kids. We pray with the water and we pass it around to our kids, and that way, we have a stronger um, stronger connection with the water. Praying with it, praying for our food. Do that with same thing with the food. Pray for the food. A lot of times we think about prayer and we think about church and going to church, and that's got nothing to do with Indian way of thinking or traditional ways of thinking. We give thanks to the food in prayer. We thank you, for giving us this nutritious, this life. That's the difference. And so don't get it twisted. We're not. I'm not. I don't go to church every all the time at all. If even, but I do pray almost every day. I use my traditional medicines and pray to the east or to where we came from. And I do pray with my food. I pray a lot more than I do go to church. But yeah, just thinking about food, and it's making me hungry. We were just watching. If you didn't get a chance to check out Carolina on this channel at Indian Health. I think a lot of Indian healths are doing food preparation. That you can watch. That you can get inspired. You can learn how to make different dishes. Today was the chili rellenos, or healthy chili rellenos, which is really good. A different way to try something. It's always good to try something new. You know, and make your diet more versatile. In that way, our body gets a little more healthy than just eating one food. But yeah, just I wanted to share a little bit of stories of of my little food journey. Just thinking about food, um, and the different areas that I've been to. Where food has been prepared. In New Mexico, the different taste is different. Um, I don't know. It's just I enjoy different types of food. That's why I like buffets, because I can select different things, and try different things and new things that I don't know. And I know back home there was a lot of taboos, like I was saying, about different fish and different ways to prepare. But if we know how to prepare it traditionally, we can avoid getting sick, or we can avoid hurting ourselves if we know how to prepare it traditionally. Like I said, around here, acorn, there's a whole process that you have to do to prepare it, to harvest it, to prepare it, to make it edible. And if you don't do it right, you can poison yourself. If you don't um, know how to get out that poison and leave the nutrition, you can really hurt yourself. So having that respect for food is really important. And knowing how to prepare it, knowing how to make it is very important. It's traditional teaching that you probably didn't know that you knew, but you know now that you know. Hey, but yeah. So preparing your food, having good thoughts as you prepare your food, preparing your meal. Always do that. Always. I always say that, even in my teaching my culture classes, when I talk about we do bead projects. Have a good mindset, have a good frame of reference. Smudge yourself. Prepare yourself. And prepare yourself by feeling good when you prepare food for other people. That way, that good feeling goes on into that person you're feeding. In good thoughts. Like I said, it's always good to be positive, and positive in food making is important. That's what teaching my grandma, that not to be mad when you make food. I know a lot of people have that same traditional, same teaching, and that way of thinking, that Indian or traditional mindset is the way to be. The way to is the way to that we've survived as Indian people for so long, on many different things, different levels. Just kind of rambling right now. But anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit about food, and like I said, I'm no way an expert, but at the same time, I'm an expert at buffets and different tasting different foods. I enjoy food, probably a little bit more than most people. I could tell you the best buffet around here is Valley View. A, but I can tell you where some good food spots are. If you ever come to San Diego, I can hit you up and take you to some good spots that I know that I enjoy. And other places around this country that I've gone to, and I always ask people. I think it was funny. My friend Terry. We were asking. He was telling me, yeah, the best way to get to figure out where the best food places is to ask the cop. I was like, what? And then he's like, yeah, let's ask this guy for the best. And it worked. We asked these cops where there was, I don't know, we were off at a powwow somewhere, and we asked these cops where we could get some good food. And they were, oh yeah, check this place out. And they, turned us on to this place called the Rio Cafe. And at the time, I was like, I never heard of it, but it was in LA. And the Rio Cafe, now is like everywhere. I guess I didn't know at the time it was a chain, but it's like a Mexican chain. But it's really good. If you haven't had that, try that out. Try some different food. Try something unique. Try to prepare something unique that you haven't prepared, that you might not have known it was indigenous, but it probably is indigenous. Because us native people are awesome in preparing our food, and hopefully we can bring that mindset or mindfulness of our food. And like I said, say a prayer to your food. Give thanks to it, and good feelings. And we're coming up on another. How many days until Christmas? I don't even count it. Every day for us is Christmas. Happy holidays. We got our little Charlie Brown tree. Actually, it's a Harry Potter tree. But anyway, you guys have a good day. Good night. Hope you guys enjoyed my little talk. I probably talked a little too much, rambled a little too much as I usually do, and I hope you guys enjoy it. It's been good talking to you guys. And yeah, let me know in the comments, questions. I see a couple comments and questions, and hopefully I kind of answered some of them, or kind of talked about them a little bit. I know, and this is you can thank Thomas. Want me to talk more about food, and yeah. So that's my little talk about food and a little bit of story time about food. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We'll see you guys next week, and let me know if you want me to talk about something that is traditional, or I can give that twist. Like I said, I'm not trying to make you my tribe, Navajo tribe, or Apsalga, but at the same time, I want to kind of give that twist to our traditional ways of thinking about different topics. But yeah, you guys have a good day. Enjoy your dinner tonight. Say a little prayer, smudge, don't judge, and eat some good food.